Social distancing at the Chamber, also known as Happy Hour with Hammer. My name is Garrick Taylor, here with the CEO of the Arizona Chamber, Glenn Hammer. Glenn, if it's Thursday night, it must mean a press conference wrap-up.
That seems to be the trend these days.
That's the cadence that we're on. Headlines out of today's press conference. Major testing capacity increase, especially in South Phoenix and the West Valley coming. We expect to be, Glenn, you checked my numbers on this. Is it up to 35,000 daily in end of July, 60,000 daily end of August?
That's correct. I believe they call it catapult, and it's a really big difference. So we're testing with diagnostic tests today, about 11,000 or so Arizonans each day. Not nearly the amount that we need tested. By the end of August, we will be about 6 times that amount, well over 60,000, because the 60,000 is really from Sonora Quest, and there's some other testing operations that will still be going on. So, in the fairly near future, we're going to see a massive increase in testing, and we all know that that's an important component in getting this deadly disease under control.
Also, as part of that new testing regime, includes some help from our friends at ASU, fairly non-invasive saliva test that will be available, 100,000 tests they expect in the West Valley. Another good development today.
That really is. That's ASU has been doing a very good job on testing. Their saliva test is far less invasive than some of the other tests. Our friends at the University of Arizona continue to do a nice job on the antibody test, which is also has utility. So, Garrick, the headline was really testing, more testing. And, it's important for people to understand this isn't simply waving a wand and you get all of this testing.
Yeah.
It's not simply a governor saying, hey, I want to test. Okay, thanks. We all want that. There's global supply chains, and we're in a global pandemic. So these reagents, these swabs, all of these components, there's a global battle. There's battle within states. There's even stuff that goes on in our federal government in terms of redirecting resources from time to time. So this was a big day for the state of Arizona. What this really means is in the very near future, and really starting now, we're going to see a constant increase in testing, and we'll get to a point where we should get to where we need to be in terms of what the real demand is. So this was a landmark day, in my opinion.
Well, speaking of testing, there's 2 steps. One is collecting the sample. The other is processing and getting the results back to the individual. We also expect that the turnaround times are going to rapidly increase as this new technology comes online.
We should get to that 24-hour turnaround, and maybe in some cases even sooner than that. And I want to give a special call out to Dave Dexter, the head of Sonora Quest. When you heard about the 60,000 test capability by the end of August, I know that company and Dave Dexter put a tremendous amount of effort into that. Again, these things are not easy to achieve, and we are very, very lucky to have a major testing lab right here in Arizona. And as you mentioned with ASU, go Sun Devils, we're very lucky to have some great innovative minds that even as we speak, I know are working on some other types of testing things that will even improve the process.
We've been hearing from the governor that you are safer at home. It's a point that he made again today. You've made it a million times on this segment. If you don't have to go out, Glenn, don't go out. It's pretty much the bottom line.
It really is, Garrick, and we all want to be out there. We've been living with this virus now for about 4 months, and what the governor's been doing is he's been working to keep the maximum amount of. I could tell that there's. Sorry for the viewers out there. I have, what home is people don't necessarily have our schedule for shooting when they decide to have different. This is live TV, so this is as it happens. But what was I saying?
If you don't have to go out, don't.
Oh yeah, if you don't have to go out, don't go out. And this is, we have cut down at the chamber. Any meeting we don't need to take in person, which is the vast majority at this point. We do it this way. We do it over the telephone. We do a Zoom call. We do a Microsoft Teams, Google, whatever. So that's important. But what the governor's been really trying to do since day one is to, as safely as possible, keep as much oxygen in this economy. And it's not just important for the businesses. I mean, people need to understand when we're going out and doing something commercially, you're not necessarily going to a restaurant because you're being kidnapped by agents. You're doing it because it's an activity you enjoy. You're a human being. And the governor gets that because, I do think a big part of this spread, and I think the numbers bear this out, it wasn't the 70-year-old crowd decided they were going to do up the town. It was a lot of 20 to 44-year-olds deciding they had enough. They were going out, and the social distancing thing wasn't particularly important. The masks weren't important. And, we saw an explosion. And I'll just say, I mean, this has gotten, I'm going to take a quick detour here. This has gotten a little bit political. Why hasn't the Republican governor done more? Why hasn't he been Governor Cuomo or someone else? Well, I'm going to tell you something. It wasn't the Newt Gingrich book club that was lighting up the Scottsdale bar scene. I doubt very many of those people are going to vote for the current president in November. These are human beings that wanted to get out there. So what the governor's tried to do, and I believe he's been doing this in the best way possible, is to keep as much of that human activity going as safely as possible while giving us all good, thoughtful instruction. If you're going to go out, wear the mask, socially distance, wash your hands, keep capacity low. Don't have these super these super crowded settings where you could have wildfire spread. So,
yeah, I mean, you've even seen various guidance documents come out, not only from Arizona, but from departments of health around the country, where it sort of lists a sliding scale of safe activities to dangerous ones. You want to walk around the park, go walk the dog, go grab the mail, knock yourself out. It's these congregate settings that you have to be especially careful with. Those can just be downright dangerous.
Yeah, and being outdoors is much, much, much safer than being indoors. So again, the governor, at the beginning, he's allowing golf. Well, guess what? New York allows golf now. They were months later. Why? Because it's safe. You could socially distance and you're outdoors. That's a lot better than being in an indoor situation where you're around a lot of people. So, we all are adjusting to the situation. And one of the things the governor said, Garrick, that I wanted to talk about is, he's going to, it's very clear the restrictions on businesses in different ways are going to be ratcheted up. Not out of malice, but out of the need to make sure that we are slowing the spread. Yeah. And we're going to be part of that at the Arizona Chamber. We're going to politely and appropriately use our team and our vast network to help here, because this isn't just one person or one government. This is one where we all, as the community, need to do the best we can to help.
Yep. Well said. I just got a question for you. Just put your news consumer hat on. Do you find the Q&A portion of the press conferences helpful anymore, or are they starting to? I think we may be jumping the shark on this part, Glenn.
I have to say there certainly are some legitimate questions, and I learned some things, but I'm looking for information from our elected officials. I'm not looking for those in the media to be giving speeches and sermons. That's not their role. Yeah. And there is a nastiness to it that I believe is wrong. Look, have they made mistakes? Absolutely. Have we made mistakes as a business community? Absolutely. But are we all working in good faith to keep people safe and healthy, and as many people gainfully employed safely as possible? we are also doing that. And I would just urge people to recognize that there's that our public officials, our governor, Dr. Christ, they have been working nonstop for at least 4 months.
Yeah.
And regardless of the elected position or the appointed position, they're human beings, and they're putting everything into it. And I'll say that there were encouraging. The plateau is way too high. We all agree on that. But it's very clear that the actions, the wearing masks, the reduction of crowded settings, things like that, they are having a positive impact.
Right. Yep. All right. Well, some good news that came out of this regarding testing. Also, some news about restaurant reduced capacity. You've seen the debate over required versus recommended, but it's further guidance today than we had before we went into today's event.
Well, and all of this will lead to the governor's keeping the aspirational goal of opening our schools up at August 17th. We'll see what happens. I think he's acknowledged that remains aspirational, but I can't stress enough all these activities in terms of pausing some activities, rolling back some other activities, and engaging in more wearing masks and personal safety protocols. All of these different things will help us get to that point where we could, as rapidly as possible and as safely as possible, reopen our K-12 schools.
Yep.
which is important for our students.
Yep. If we're going to do so safely, it's incumbent upon all of us to take very deliberate steps as we approach that time. And that means, again, staying home.
So while, some are trying to make fun of, what the governor's saying about watching Netflix, he's right. You're taking the velocity out of an unnecessary trip out of the economy. You're doing something that's helpful for all. So I'm going to watch Roma tonight. I know others are going to have other programs, but we'll continue to grind away and do everything we can to keep everything going.
That's right. Well, they say if it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press, and if it's Thursday, it means Glenn reacts to the press. So that's another edition in the books. Thanks, Glenn.
Thanks, Garrick.